Okay, so today we're kind of more talk about the Russian and Ukrainian war. And the main reason I'm talking about this is because I kind of keep up with the news a bit more and stuff, and I don't have like any insider information or anything, but I just keep up with the news, so I figured I would just kind of spew about this really fast. And the whole thing behind it is like in the past week or so now, like Russia has advanced, and they have kind of shown the fact that they're ready for some peace talks in like Istanbul and stuff, which is in Turkey and stuff. And following that, though, like Ukraine denied the fact that they're the reasons for the delays, which I mean, once again, I would completely believe that on their part, that they're the reason for the delays is Russia, because Russia has been the one kind of delaying all these peace talks and everything. Because once again, as we'll get into the video later, they have kind of sort of pushed into Ukraine a bit more recently. But following that, I also kind of want to talk about what's going on within their energy sector, because that wasn't really that major what I was just talking about. I mean, it does kind of matter, but because it does kind of signify the peace talks. But this is more like important kind of stuff that's kind of happening in the country. Well, for one, the G7 meetings with which is like diplomatic meetings and stuff, they are, like, I think it was like Canada or something, they have like admitted that they're going to support Ukraine, kind of like, backed them up fully type deal. And I think also Ukraine has also pledged to help out with like energy sectors and stuff and like infrastructure aid and everything like that. But it does kind of sort of make it kind of a questionable thing for everybody else, because as other countries do get involved in this, there is a higher possibility Russia does target these other countries. Maybe not during the war, because once again, this is kind of a embarrassment on Russia's part. Mainly because they're just so big and trying to invade this small country. Like, I understand that they like have American weapons in Ukraine and everything, and that's kind of a major thing over there. But it is also kind of the fact that you're such a big country. You are meant to be second to the United States, and the United States weapons have completely stopped you. I mean, that's embarrassing as shit. And that's the whole thing though behind this is that's probably the thing that gives a lot of these countries confidence to pledge these sports, is because seeing Russia struggle so much in Ukraine kind of like makes it, for like France, for example, if Russia ever got to France, it would just almost like kind of make it not such a big deal anymore, because if Ukraine was able to hold them with American weapons for so long, obviously France would, Germany would, Poland would, all these other countries would, and it would just only kind of make really just kind of no sense for them not to do this right now. Stop them before they get to your countries type deal. But now more like within their energy sector, apparently something to do with a bribery scheme has kind of came out into the thing. I wouldn't really sit there and say this is a majorly true statement, because once again, this could be coming from Russia. I wouldn't really even confirm this one is fully true, but something to do with like $100 million bribery scheme and stuff. I'm not going to get too much into this, maybe in like a later video of me updating about this, but I really just don't think that this has a place in the video yet, because I don't really want to be spreading any like Russian propaganda or anything, and that's just purely not what we're here to do. We're here to purely talk about what is happening in Russia and Ukraine. Now, this is kind of where things kind of start to change a little bit. So on November 4th, November 4th, Russian forces reportedly gained 59 square miles of Ukraine territory, up from 34 the prior week. So this would kind of mean that Russian forces are sort of pushing Ukraine back at more of a faster pace right now. But at the same time, does this mean really Russia's winning? Because we have seen this before in these wars and stuff, and I would have to say this right now, probably not. I mean, you can push as much as you want right now anymore, but even if the war came to an end today, this is probably going to go down as a Russian loss. It doesn't really matter how you really want to look at it, or any of that other stuff. This is a Russian loss more than likely. Um, I think they did gain a bit more territory. Yeah, there was also a fog. Major fog happened in Ukraine, which actually did aid Russian forces. The heavy fog is reducing the effectiveness of Ukrainian drones, enabling Russian forces to advance using light vehicles and infantry tactics. So this is kind of like a major thing here, is that nature is kind of starting to have its own turn in the war, and this is was seen even in the Napoleonic Wars and stuff like that. But the whole thing behind it is that this would be better if this would could turn for a Ukrainian advantage, because once again, obviously, I'm not going to sit there and be like, yeah, Russia should go off and invade Ukraine. I really think that Ukraine should defend themselves, but at the same time, Russia is kind of in a sticky situation here, because while Mother Nature might be favoring them, obviously with like what we're seeing happening with the G7 meetings, what we're seeing with all this other stuff, and especially once again, I'm not saying it's true, but especially if that energy sector thing is true, it could cause major issues in the sense of support for Ukraine. Because if support for Ukraine starts to waver in other countries, it could really start to show the signs of like a defeat for Ukraine. So once again, I'm not going to sit there and say the energy thing is true, but with the weekly gains now shifting more, and if they are able to continue to gain more and more over the weeks, it could possibly shift the support of countries into a less likely chance to support them, because once again, why would you give a country weapons that are just going to get into Russian hands and stuff? Also though, Russia has like apparently, like this is not like really about this week or anything, but apparently like, Russia has reported that the gain of territory apparently gives about 4 million total grain, which I mean that is quite a lot of grain and stuff, and they are gaining territory probably more than likely for that. But I have to say this right now, as the war has probably continued on, it has probably gotten a lot harder to kind of keep your administration and all that stuff underneath control. Because once again, we're not always, like, humans aren't the best at being machines and stuff. And so within that, it kind of comes a difficulty for us to run a country in war. Because we're not robots, we like to enjoy ourselves and stuff like that, obviously. But that's my whole thing behind it is that might be true with the energy sector. It might not be. And that's kind of what I'm saying, trying to get out my point here is that the energy sector thing isn't that big of a deal, because once again, if it's true, it's the rest of the people that did it, boom, bada bang, you're all good. Just keep corruption under your control, which that can be really hard in war times. I mean, I know I've played like Total Wars and stuff. In some of those games, if you're really like, I know I'm referencing this to a game now, right now, but once again, this is my best comparison to what I have to running a fucking country in war times. But in those games, if you're constantly at war, it's a good thing for like your country and everything, but it will relatively eventually collapse you, because eventually your armies won't be up on your front lines exactly. Maybe there will be weak points of your front lines, or maybe your economy will just relatively start to fall and falter, and it can cause relatively major issues. But that's kind of my whole spiel.